My stepdaughter's mom deliberately withheld her medication and filmed her panic attacks for attention. We took her to court and had her sent to jail. 2 years later, she had the audacity to show up uninvited to my daughter's sweet 16 party, smiling and acting like none of it had ever happened. Have you ever witnessed someone's envy transform them into a destructive force? I realized I was in a difficult situation when my 12-year-old stepdaughter, Emma, began requesting permission for a simple embrace. Following her parents' separation, Emma moved in with her father and me. Over the past 2 years, we had cultivated a wonderful bond. She would rush to me after school, eager to share her day's adventures. She affectionately called me Mama and always complimented my mac and cheese, despite it being a boxed mix. Everything shifted after her biological mother, Linda, experienced a breakup. Suddenly, Emma returned from weekend visits behaving differently. She would recoil from my hugs and pose peculiar questions, such as, "Do you truly care for me? Or is it just for Dad?" I initially dismissed it as typical preteen behavior until Emma mentioned her father had been unfaithful to her mother with me, which was untrue. Linda was the one who cheated, and her father and I met a year later. Linda then started making calls during our movie nights, insisting Emma needed to speak with her immediately. She would keep Emma on the phone for extended periods, discussing loyalty and the importance of families staying united. It was disheartening that right after these conversations, Emma began seeking permission to hug me, as if something was amiss. When Linda discovered I had enrolled Emma in therapy for her anxiety, she completely distorted the situation, stating, "I believed Emma was damaged and required mending." However, the worst revelation came when I learned Linda had been withholding Emma's anxiety medication during her weekend visits, then taking her to crowded, overwhelming environments. Emma would experience severe panic attacks, and Linda would record them. One Saturday, Emma called me in tears after sending me these videos, declaring, "Look what your parenting has done to my daughter." As if subjecting a child to such distress wasn't enough, Linda once inadvertently left Emma at a soccer game. I received a frantic call from Emma, sobbing, asking me to pick her up. When I arrived, Emma collapsed into my arms, trembling, and Linda appeared moments later, shouting at me in front of all the other parents about how I had stolen her daughter's allegiance. Emma clung to me, terrified, while Linda screamed that I was manipulating her child. She also falsified Emma's therapy progress notes to suggest I was experimenting on her. When Emma was diagnosed with ADHD, Linda asserted I was medicating her to make her docile. She edited recordings of me patiently explaining things to Emma to portray me as controlling. I realized I needed to prepare Emma for what lay ahead. So, I taught her breathing exercises for her anxiety. My husband, Emma, and I created a memory album of our cherished moments together. But one evening, Emma began having nightmares about being separated from me. Her therapist was helping her process the trauma Linda was inflicting. I consistently reassured her that this would never happen. But everything escalated when Linda appeared at school pickup, alleging that I was unstable and fixated on Emma. She even exploited my struggle with infertility against me, claiming I was desperate for a child and therefore untrustworthy. She then warned me to prepare for a court battle. Linda's attorney launched an aggressive attack on the first day of court, presenting Linda's doctored videos that made me sound domineering and asserting I was grooming Emma to choose me over her biological mother. They showed the judge Emma's drawings that included me and the family and claimed I had coerced her into creating them. Linda actually sat there nodding, as if everything was perfectly normal. However, when our lawyer cross-examined Linda, she completely unraveled. When questioned about withholding Emma's medication, Linda claimed she was safeguarding her daughter from unnecessary substances. When pressed about filming Emma's panic attacks, she stated she was documenting the abuse. The judge's eyebrows consistently rose at her responses, and I could tell he wasn't convinced. Linda became so agitated she began rambling about how step-parents shouldn't have rights and how I was seizing what belonged to her. The judge called for a recess after our lawyer finished and expressed his desire to hear directly from Emma, as the entire case was supposedly about her best interests. Our lawyer had prepared Emma for this possibility, but so had Linda. She had been instructing her on what to say if she had to testify. That night, Emma barely touched her dinner. She repeatedly asked if she would get into trouble for what she said the next day. Terry and I both told her to simply speak the truth about her feelings, but I could see the internal struggle in her eyes. The following morning, Emma wore her favorite dress, the purple one with butterflies. She held my hand walking into the courthouse, but I could feel her trembling. Linda was already there, glaring at us as if we were criminals. When they called Emma to testify, my heart pounded. This 11-year-old child held my entire future in her hands. Whatever she uttered would determine if I could continue to be her mama or if Linda would prevail. Emma walked to the front, looking so small. The judge smiled at her and assured her she wasn't in trouble, that he merely wanted to hear her perspective. Emma nodded and gripped the sides of her chair. Then she began to speak. Emma looked at the judge and took a deep breath. Her small hands were tightly clasped in her lap, knuckles white from the tension. Then she recounted everything. She explained how her mother instructed her to say, "I made her feel scared," even though it wasn't true. Her voice trembled slightly as she spoke, but she persevered. She spoke about the medication and how her mother wouldn't give it to her during visits, how she would conceal the pills and claim Emma didn't need them, that they were making her weak. She described the panic attacks in crowded places and how her mother filmed them instead of helping, holding up her phone while Emma gasped for air, telling her to show everyone how upset you are. The entire courtroom was silent. You could hear the fluorescent lights humming overhead. Linda's face shifted from confident to shocked to enraged. Her perfectly manicured nails dug into the wooden table. Her lawyer repeatedly attempted to object, but the judge silenced him with sharp gestures of his hand. Emma continued, her voice growing stronger with each word. She stated she loved her mother, but her mother was doing frightening things. That she felt secure with me and Dad, but her mother made her feel bad about it, always saying things like, "They're not your real family, and blood is thicker than water." When Emma spoke about the soccer game, describing how her mother had screamed at her from the sidelines, Linda actually stood up. Her chair scraped loudly against the floor. Her lawyer had to pull her back down, whispering urgently in her ear. Emma's voice became shaky, but she kept talking. She said her mother told her I would leave once things became difficult, that I didn't truly love her, that I was just pretending to make her father happy. But Emma said she knew that wasn't true because I was still there. Even with all the unpleasantness occurring, even when her mother made their lives miserable. The judge thanked Emma, and she returned to sit with us. Her butterfly dress rustled as she walked, the same dress she had worn to her spring concert. I longed to embrace her, but knew I couldn't in court. Terry squeezed her hand and whispered that she had done wonderfully. I could see tears in his eyes that he was attempting to blink away. Linda's lawyer tried to argue that we had coached Emma, that we had manipulated her testimony, fed her lines to say. He stood up dramatically, gesturing with his hands, but the judge was not convinced. He stated Emma's testimony aligned with the evidence we had presented. The authentic therapy notes that demonstrated Linda had been untruthful about Emma's progress. The medication records proving she had not been administering Emma's anxiety medication, the witness statements from the soccer game, including one from the referee who had to halt the game due to Linda's conduct. The judge delivered his ruling immediately. He declared Linda's behavior harmful to Emma, that she deliberately caused distress to her daughter to win a custody battle, prioritizing her own desires above her child's well-being. He mandated supervised visits only. Linda would have to complete counseling before any unsupervised time could be contemplated. His voice was stern, leaving no room for misinterpretation. Linda erupted. She began screaming that this wasn't over, that she would never cease fighting for her daughter. Her voice echoed off the courtroom walls. Security had to escort her out while she yelled about corruption and how we had bribed the judge. Her heels clicked frantically on the marble floor as they led her away. Emma was trembling when we exited the courthouse. The October air was crisp, but she was perspiring. She kept asking if her mother would come take her. We assured her that couldn't happen now. The judge's order was unambiguous and legally binding, but I could see she didn't fully believe us, her eyes darting around the parking lot as if anticipating her mother to emerge from behind a vehicle. That night, Emma slept in our bed. She had nightmares and woke up crying twice, calling out for me in the darkness. Terry and I took turns comforting her, rubbing her back and reminding her she was safe. By morning, we were all exhausted but relieved it was over. The sun streaming through our bedroom windows felt like hope, except it wasn't over. Not even close. 3 days later, I received a call from Emma's school. It was a Thursday morning, and I was in a meeting at work. The secretary sounded puzzled and slightly alarmed. She said Emma's mother was there, claiming she needed to speak to Emma urgently about a family emergency involving Linda's mother, but the secretary remembered the court proceedings and wanted to confirm with us first. I could hear commotion in the background. I told her absolutely not. Linda was not permitted unsupervised contact. The secretary said she would handle it, but I could hear Linda yelling in the background, her voice growing louder and more aggressive. I grabbed my keys and drove to the school, running 2 yellow lights on the way. By the time I arrived, Linda was gone. The principal, Mr. Harrison, said she had threatened to call the police before finally departing. He was visibly unsettled, adjusting his tie nervously. He assured me they had the court order on file and would not release Emma to her under any circumstances, but I could see the staff was shaken. The secretary's hands were trembling as she filed papers. Emma learned about it from a friend who had witnessed the commotion from their classroom window. She spent the remainder of the day in the nurse's office with a stomach ache that was clearly anxiety-induced. When I picked her up, she asked if we could relocate somewhere her mother couldn't find them, perhaps to another state, she suggested hopefully. It broke my heart to see her so frightened. I began meticulously documenting everything. Every instance Linda appeared somewhere she shouldn't be, every phone call to the school, every violation of the court order. I purchased a special notebook specifically for this purpose. Our lawyer advised us to maintain detailed records in case we needed them later, noting dates, times, witnesses, everything. The supervised visits were a catastrophe from the outset. Linda was supposed to see Emma at a family center with a social worker present. The building smelled of disinfectant and had that institutional atmosphere that made everyone uncomfortable. During the first visit, Emma returned saying her mother had whispered things when the social worker wasn't looking. Comments about how I would abandon her when difficulties arose, how her father would choose me over her if he had to, how stepmothers in fairy tales were wicked for a reason. The social worker, a young woman named Patricia, stated she hadn't observed anything concerning, but Emma was visibly distressed, her face pale and drawn. She began experiencing anxiety attacks the night before visits. She would plead not to go, clinging to my arm, but the court order mandated her attendance. We had no alternative. Linda quickly deciphered our routine. She must have been trailing us, or had someone observing. She started appearing at places: the grocery store where we shopped every Saturday morning, the park where Emma enjoyed reading under the large oak tree, Emma's soccer practice at the community field, always maintaining a distance just far enough that it wasn't technically violating the restraining order. But we saw her. Emma saw her. She would be there in her car, watching, sometimes taking pictures with her phone. Other parents at soccer began asking questions. They had heard about the court case from the incident at the game that had initiated all this. Now they saw Linda lurking around practices, sitting in her silver sedan at the far end of the parking lot. Some offered sympathetic glances. Others whispered when I passed by, likely sharing rumors about our family drama. Emma quit soccer 2 weeks later. She claimed she no longer enjoyed it, that it wasn't fun, but I knew it was because she feared her mother would cause another scene. She adored soccer, had been playing since she was 6, had trophies on her dresser and posters of her favorite players on her walls, but Linda had ruined that too. Then Linda enlisted assistance from her family. Her sister, Danielle, began contacting the school with grievances. She claimed to be concerned about Emma's welfare, that she had noticed bruises when she saw her at the grocery store. There were no bruises. Emma hadn't even scraped her knee in months, but the school had to investigate every complaint. A social worker visited our house on a Tuesday afternoon. Emma had to display her arms and legs, lifting her sleeves and pant legs while a stranger examined her, answering questions about whether anyone hurt her, if she felt safe, if she had sufficient food. She was mortified, her cheeks burning red. The social worker found nothing alarming, but the damage was done. Emma felt like everyone was scrutinizing her, judging our family. She started wearing long sleeves, even when it was warm. Linda's mother, Judith, became involved next. She was a stern woman who had always disapproved of Terry's remarriage. She started appearing at Emma's choir concerts and school plays. She would sit in the front row and stare at me with cold eyes. When Emma saw her, she would forget her lines or miss her cue, her voice faltering mid-song. Her teacher inquired if everything was all right at home, concerned about Emma's sudden stage fright. I tried to remain composed for Emma, but inside, I was falling apart. I wasn't sleeping, lying awake listening for cars driving by slowly. Wasn't eating much. My clothes started to hang loosely. Terry and I began arguing about what to do. He wanted to move, start fresh somewhere new where Linda couldn't locate us. But I didn't want to uproot Emma from her school and friends. She had already lost so much: her best friend Sophia, her soccer team, her sense of security. The supervised visits worsened each week. Linda would spend the entire hour telling Emma how much she missed her, how empty her house was without her, how she cried every night looking at Emma's vacant bedroom. Emma would return home feeling guilty and confused, asking if it was her fault her mother was sad. The social worker said it wasn't technically inappropriate, but we could discern Linda's actions: emotional manipulation disguised as affection. One day, I was at work when my boss summoned me to his office. He closed the door behind me, which was never a good sign. He said someone had called claiming I was neglecting a child, that I left her home alone and didn't feed her properly, that I spent all the family's money on myself. He knew it was untrue, but said he had to document the complaint for HR. I knew it was Linda. She was attempting to get me terminated to prove I couldn't provide for Emma. I started taking time off work to manage everything, following up with lawyers, meeting with school officials, driving Emma to extra therapy appointments with Dr. Martinez, who was trying to help her process everything. My boss was understanding, but I could see his patience wearing thin. My coworkers had to cover for me constantly. Emma's grades began declining dramatically. She couldn't concentrate in class, staring out windows instead of at her textbooks. Her teacher called a meeting to discuss her performance, stating Emma seemed distracted and anxious, wasn't submitting homework, and inquired if there were problems at home. I tried to explain without going into excessive detail, but it was humiliating sitting in those tiny chairs meant for children, discussing our family's private struggles. Linda discovered the meeting. She had been calling the school, impersonating me, using information she had gathered to sound convincing. She appeared at the meeting uninvited, bursting through the door dramatically, and began talking about how Emma's problems proved I was a detrimental influence. The principal had to ask her to leave, but she had already made her point. The damage was done. Emma was mortified. She had been sitting in the hallway waiting for us to finish, doing homework on a bench. She heard her mother yelling through the thin walls, saw the other parents staring as they picked up their children. She didn't want to return to school the next day. She said everyone would be talking about her crazy family, and she was probably correct. I realized Linda was deliberately creating chaos, making Emma's life unstable so she could point to the instability as proof I was bad for her. It was perverse, using her own daughter as a weapon in her war against us. The breaking point arrived on a Tuesday afternoon in November. Linda had deciphered our after-school routine down to the minute. She knew I picked Emma up at 3:15. Knew we usually stopped at the park on pleasant days so Emma could play while I caught up on emails. She was waiting for us by the swings. Emma saw her first. She grabbed my hand and tried to pull me back to the car, her eyes wide with panic, but Linda was already approaching, walking purposefully across the playground. She had this falsely concerned expression on her face, the one she used to deceive people who didn't know better. She started asking Emma if she was all right, if she needed anything, if she wanted to return home with her real mother where she belonged. I told Linda to leave, that she was violating the court order by being within 100 feet of us. She claimed she was just a concerned mother checking on her child, that any good mother would do the same, that I wouldn't comprehend because I wasn't Emma's real mother. Other parents were observing. Some had their phones out, probably recording the confrontation. Emma was crying, tears streaming down her face, begging her mother to depart. Linda kept saying she just wanted to help, that she could see Emma was suffering, that she could fix everything if Emma would just come with her. She reached for Emma's arm, her fingers grasping. That's when Emma snapped. She screamed at her mother to leave her alone. She said she was afraid of her, that she was cruel and irrational and ruined everything good in her life. The entire park fell silent. Even the children on the playground stopped playing to stare. Linda's face transformed instantly. The false concern vanished like a mask falling off. She looked at me with pure hatred, her eyes narrowing to slits. She said this was my fault, that I had turned her daughter against her, that I would pay for this. Then she left, but not before spitting on the ground near my feet. Emma cried the entire way home, sobbing so intensely she could barely breathe. She kept apologizing for yelling, saying she didn't mean to be bad, that she shouldn't have said those things. I told her she wasn't bad, that she had every right to be upset, that sometimes telling the truth meant saying difficult things, but she just kept crying, curled up in the back seat. That night, Terry and I made a decision. We couldn't continue living like this. Emma couldn't continue living like this. The constant fear, the anxiety, the disruption to her life. We called our lawyer and stated we needed an emergency hearing. The harassment had to cease before it completely destroyed Emma. Our lawyer filed the next day. We included everything: the school visits documented by the principal, the false complaints to my employer and CPS, the stalking incidents with photos of her car, the witness statements from the park, including a video one parent had taken. We requested a complete termination of Linda's visitation rights until she completed serious mental health treatment. Linda's response was immediate and malicious. She started calling the house nonstop, leaving voicemails about how we couldn't keep her from her daughter, how she would never surrender, how we would regret crossing her. Terry had to change our number, which meant updating it everywhere and explaining to people why. But Linda discovered other methods. She created fake social media accounts to message Emma, telling her she was a bad daughter, that she would regret choosing me, that blood was forever and I would eventually leave when I grew tired of playing mommy. We had to monitor all of Emma's online activity, checking her messages daily. Emma stopped wanting to leave the house entirely. She was afraid of encountering her mother, afraid of another scene. She would have panic attacks just thinking about going to the store. Her therapist increased her sessions to twice a week and started her on a new anxiety medication. The emergency hearing was scheduled for 2 weeks out. 2 weeks felt like an eternity when every day brought new stress. Linda escalated her behavior. She started driving by our house at all hours, not stopping, just driving by slowly enough for us to see her. Emma saw her one night when she got up for water and didn't sleep for 2 days afterward. I was at my breaking point. I wasn't eating, surviving on coffee and crackers. Wasn't sleeping, jumping at every sound. Snapped at Terry over minor things like leaving dishes in the sink. He was struggling too, dark circles under his eyes. We were both trying to protect Emma, but felt like we were failing. Linda was winning by making our lives miserable. Then something shifted. Emma asked to speak to us one night after dinner. She said she was tired of being scared, tired of her mother controlling their lives. She wanted to fight back, not in a cruel way, but by speaking the truth about everything, by standing up for herself and our family. We helped Emma compose a letter to the judge. She detailed every incident in her own words, every threat, every manipulation, how her mother made her feel worthless and afraid, what she desired for her future, to feel safe, to be happy, to not wake up afraid. It was heartbreaking to read, but also demonstrated how strong Emma was becoming. The night before the emergency hearing, Linda made one last attempt. She called Terry's parents, his sweet elderly parents who lived 3 states away and had health problems of their own. She told them I was abusing their granddaughter, that Terry was enabling it, that they needed to intervene before something terrible happened. They called Terry, confused and worried, his mother crying. Terry had to explain everything to them over speakerphone. They were horrified, not at us, but at Linda. They offered to fly out for the hearing, despite his father's recent hip surgery, to testify about what good parents we were. Terry cried after that call. His parents had never seen him cry, not even during the divorce when Linda had been at her worst. The morning of the hearing, Emma wore her butterfly dress again. She said it was her brave dress now. She held both our hands walking in, her grip firm and determined. Linda was already there with her lawyer. She looked confident, as if she knew she would win. She had styled her hair and worn a conservative suit, playing the part of the concerned mother, but she didn't know about Emma's letter. Didn't know about all the documentation we had gathered. Didn't know that 3 of Emma's teachers had written statements about Linda's disruptive behavior. Didn't know the social worker from the supervised visits had filed concerns about Linda's mental state. Didn't know we had security footage from several locations showing her stalking us. Our lawyer presented everything methodically. The phone records showing hundreds of calls, the false complaints with documentation proving they were lies, the stalking incidents with photos and videos, the witness statements from teachers, parents, and family friends, and finally, Emma's letter. The judge read it carefully. His expression grew more serious with each page. Linda's lawyer tried to argue we had influenced Emma, that we had coached her to say these things, but the judge asked Linda directly about each incident, asked her to explain her behavior. Linda couldn't. She kept saying she was just being a concerned mother, that we would understand if Emma was truly ours, that biology created bonds that couldn't be replicated. That comment made the judge's eyebrows shoot up. He asked Linda if she thought step-parents couldn't genuinely love children. Linda went on a rant about how biology mattered, how I would never comprehend a real mother's love, how Emma would realize that eventually and return to her. She actually said that love wasn't sufficient, that DNA was what mattered. The judge had heard enough. He revoked Linda's visitation rights completely. He said she needed a full psychological evaluation before any contact could be considered, extended the restraining order to include Emma's school and all activities, and made it clear that any violation would result in jail time. His voice was firm and final. Linda stood up and screamed that this wasn't over, that she would never stop fighting, that Emma was hers and always would be. Security moved toward her, but her lawyer grabbed her arm and dragged her out. You could hear her yelling all the way down the hall about justice and motherhood and corruption. Emma was trembling but smiling after the hearing. She asked if it was truly finished, if her mother couldn't bother us anymore. We confirmed it. The judge had made it clear Linda had to stay away or face severe consequences, including imprisonment. We went for ice cream afterward. Emma chose chocolate with rainbow sprinkles. She laughed for the first time in months, a genuine laugh, not the feigned one she had been using to make us feel better. Terry and I just watched her be a child again, licking her cone and getting ice cream on her nose. That night, Emma slept through without nightmares. She woke up and asked if she could have friends over that weekend for a sleepover. She hadn't wanted friends over in months, too afraid her mother might appear and embarrass her, but now she felt secure again. Life slowly returned to normal. Emma started playing soccer again, hesitantly at first, but then with her old enthusiasm. Her grades improved dramatically. She stopped asking permission for everything. Started hugging me without hesitation, running to greet me after school. The old Emma reemerged piece by piece. But Linda wasn't finished. She just became more cunning. About a month after the hearing, things seemed quiet, too quiet. Emma was doing better, mostly back to her old self. She had started spending time with her friend Sophia again and even joined the school play. I should have known Linda was devising something. The first indication was a letter from a lawyer, not Linda's usual attorney, but a new individual from a prestigious downtown firm. They were requesting Emma's medical records for a review of treatment necessity. Terry called our lawyer, who advised us to disregard it. They no longer had any legal right to those records. Then Emma's school called about a peculiar woman asking questions about Emma's attendance. The woman claimed to be from a child welfare organization conducting a study on divorced families. But when the principal requested credentials, she left quickly. The description matched Linda's sister, Danielle. I started noticing cars following me to work, different vehicles, but always maintaining a distance of 3 or 4 cars back. When I would change lanes, they would change lanes. When I would pull into a parking lot, they would drive past slowly. I became paranoid and started taking different routes every day. Emma mentioned her grandmother Judith had been texting her. I didn't even know she had Emma's number. The text seemed innocuous enough, just asking how school was and if she needed anything, but it felt wrong. We blocked the number, but new ones kept appearing. Terry's work started receiving calls too, anonymous complaints about him leaving early to deal with family drama. Someone reported him for using company resources for personal legal matters. His boss knew it was harassment, but still had to document everything. The stress was significantly affecting him. Then Linda discovered a loophole. She couldn't contact Emma directly, but she started writing letters to Emma's teachers, long, rambling messages about how she was concerned for her daughter's education, how she wanted to be involved, as any good mother would. The teachers had to forward them to the principal, who filed them away, but it was disruptive. One teacher, Mrs. Peterson, actually seemed sympathetic to Linda. She started making comments to Emma about how challenging it must be without her real mother. She asked if she missed her mother. Emma returned home upset, saying Mrs. Peterson made her feel guilty. We had to request Emma be moved to a different class. The breaking point came when Linda somehow got herself appointed as a volunteer for the school library. The school didn't realize who she was because she used her maiden name on the application. She would be there every Tuesday and Thursday, just happening to be shelving books near Emma's classroom. Emma saw her one day when her class went to check out books. She froze completely, couldn't move or speak. Her friend had to get the teacher, who called me immediately. By the time I got there, Linda was gone, but Emma was in the nurse's office having a full panic attack. The principal was mortified when he realized what had transpired. He immediately banned Linda from school property permanently, but the damage was done. Emma was terrified to go to school again. Started feigning illness every morning. Her anxiety was worse than ever. We returned to court for another emergency hearing. This time, we requested criminal charges, stalking, harassment, violation of a restraining order. Our lawyer said Linda was escalating, and it would only worsen. The judge agreed and issued a warrant for her arrest, but Linda vanished. Her house was empty when the police went to serve the warrant. Her sister claimed not to know her whereabouts. Her mother said the same thing. Terry hired a private investigator to find her, but she had meticulously covered her tracks. For 2 weeks, we lived in fear. Every car that drove by could be her. Every unknown number that called could be her. Emma slept in our room every night. We installed security cameras and an alarm system. Terry took time off work to be home when Emma got out of school. Then she made a mistake. She used her credit card at a motel about 2 hours away. The private investigator located her and contacted the police. They arrested her in the motel parking lot. She had notebooks filled with our schedules, printed photos of Emma, and detailed plans for reclaiming her daughter. At the criminal trial, Linda represented herself, a significant error. She ranted about mother's rights and biological bonds, stating the court was corrupt for keeping her from her child. She claimed I had brainwashed everyone, including the judge. The prosecutor simply allowed her to speak. She incriminated herself with every word. She received 6 months in jail and 3 years probation. The judge made it clear any violation would mean serious prison time. Linda screamed as they led her away in handcuffs, saying she would never give up on her daughter, that Emma would eventually return to her. Emma watched the news coverage at home. She seemed relieved, but also sad. She said she wished her mother could just be normal, that she missed the mother she used to have before everything went crazy. We told her it was okay to feel both things, relief and grief. While Linda was incarcerated, we had 6 months of peace, genuine peace. Emma flourished without the constant fear. She made new friends, earned straight A's, even won a science fair prize for her project on anxiety and teenagers. She was seeing her therapist less and less. I legally adopted Emma during those 6 months. Linda couldn't contest it from jail. The day it was finalized, Emma asked if she could call me Mom instead of Mama. She said, Mama felt like a little kid's name, and she was growing up. I cried uncontrollably right there in the courthouse. We thought perhaps jail would make Linda realize she needed help, that she would get therapy and medication and emerge improved. Terry even said maybe someday they could have some kind of relationship if Linda became healthy. We were naive. Linda was released on a Tuesday. By Thursday, she was already violating probation. She appeared at Emma's middle school graduation, sat in the back wearing sunglasses and a hat as if that would deceive anyone. Emma saw her during the ceremony and almost didn't walk across the stage. Security removed Linda before the ceremony ended, but she had made her point. She was back and wasn't going to stop. Her probation officer issued a warning, but that was all. One warning for traumatizing her daughter at what should have been a joyful milestone. Emma started high school that fall on edge. She joined the drama club but quit after Linda appeared at auditions pretending to be a parent volunteer. She tried out for basketball but stopped when she saw Linda's car in the parking lot during tryouts. Every activity became a risk. We returned to court again and again and again. Each time, Linda would receive a minor penalty, a fine, extended probation, more conditions she would immediately violate. The system kept granting her opportunities, and she kept exploiting them. Meanwhile, Emma suffered. By sophomore year, Emma was tired of being scared. She became angry instead, started confronting Linda when she appeared at places, told her to seek help, to leave them alone, to stop ruining her life. Linda would cry and say she just loved her daughter, that she couldn't help it. One day, Emma completely snapped. Linda appeared at her Sweet 16 party at a restaurant. Just walked in as if she had been invited, started taking pictures and telling people she was Emma's mother, acting as if nothing was wrong, as if the restraining order didn't exist. Emma stood up in front of everyone, her friends, our family, even kids from school she barely knew. She told Linda she was done, that Linda wasn't her mother anymore, that I was her real mom because I genuinely cared about her happiness, that Linda only cared about winning. She said Linda had stolen her childhood with her madness, made her afraid of her own shadow, ruined soccer and school plays and normal kid activities, but she wasn't going to let her steal anything else. She was done being a victim, done letting Linda control her life with fear. Then Emma called the police herself, reported the restraining order violation. She sat there eating cake while we waited for them to arrive. When they arrested Linda again, Emma didn't even look up from her conversation with her friends. Just kept laughing and being a teenager. That was the turning point. Linda finally went to real prison, 18 months for repeated violations. The judge said she was a danger to her daughter's mental health, that she had shown no ability to control herself or respect the law. Linda didn't scream this time, just stared at Emma with a broken expression. Emma felt guilty at first, said maybe she had been too harsh, but her therapist helped her understand she had just protected herself, that she had every right to be angry, that choosing her own well-being wasn't selfish, it was necessary and brave. We used those 18 months to truly heal. Emma obtained her driver's license and a part-time job at a bookstore, started dating a kind boy named Marcus from her chemistry class, applied to colleges without looking over her shoulder, normal teenage activities that felt like miracles to us. She decided to write her college essay about overcoming family trauma, about learning that DNA doesn't make a parent, that love is demonstrated through actions, not biology, about how her stepmom became her real mom by simply being present. I cried reading it. Terry cried too. Linda was released the week before Emma's high school graduation. We were prepared this time. Had plans in place, security at the ceremony, orders filed in advance. Emma said she wasn't going to let her mother take this from her too. She had earned this moment. But Linda didn't show up, didn't violate the order. We discovered later she had checked herself into a psychiatric facility. Finally admitted she needed help, said losing Emma had broken something in her, but prison made her realize she had broken it herself. Emma didn't want to visit her. She said maybe someday when she was older, when the wounds weren't so fresh, but not now. Not when she was just beginning to feel normal. We respected that. Healing happens on your own timeline, not anyone else's. Emma is going to college next fall. Got into her first choice with a partial scholarship. She wants to study psychology. Says maybe she can help kids going through what she went through. Turn her pain into purpose. We're so proud we could burst. Last week, we were cleaning out her room, packing items for college, and found the old memory book we had made during the worst of it. Emma flipped through it and smiled. She said it reminded her how far we had come, how we had survived Linda's war against our family. She added new pages, photos from prom and graduation, her acceptance letter, pictures of us just being normal and happy. At the end, she wrote, "My real family," and drew hearts around it. Simple but perfect. Terry and I are planning a vacation for after we drop Emma at college. First real vacation in years, somewhere quiet where we can sleep in and not worry about crazy ex-wives or court dates or protecting anyone. Just be a normal couple for a while. Emma says we deserve it. Says we saved her life by fighting for her, by not giving up when Linda made everything hell, by showing her what real love looks like. Patient and steady and unconditional. Not demanding or controlling or conditional on DNA. Sometimes I think about Linda. Wonder if she's truly getting help or just biding her time. But mostly I don't. She stole enough of our peace. She doesn't get to steal more. We won. Not because we destroyed her, but because we survived her. Emma's our daughter. Has been since she started calling me mama at 9 years old. Linda tried to use biology as a weapon, but love triumphed. The genuine kind. The kind that appears every day, even when it's difficult. The kind that fights for what's right. The kind that builds a family. So yes, that's how someone's jealousy transformed them into a monster. How a mother's obsession with possession almost destroyed her daughter. How we fought back with truth and affection and documentation. How Emma chose her real family, and we chose her right back. She leaves for college in 3 months. I'm going to cry like a baby, Terry too probably. But they'll be joyful tears, proud tears. We made it tears. Our small family survived and thrived despite someone's best efforts to tear us apart. And that's the greatest victory of all. Living well, being happy, moving forward. Linda wanted to annihilate us, but only destroyed herself. We wanted to shield Emma and ended up building something beautiful. A real family based on love, not just DNA. Emma still asks permission sometimes. Old habits are hard to break, but then she catches herself and laughs. Hugs me without asking. Calls me mom like it's the most natural thing in the world, because it is. Because that's what I am, her mom who fought for her.